Hello, and welcome back for another episode of Off the Shelf Book Talk with Book People. Correct?
Right.
Yes, I got it right that time. I'm Elizabeth Nelson, and this is Kay Johnson, and welcome back. What have you been reading, Kay?
Well, you would ask me that, and I'm
I
sort
would.
of
It's
thinking.
it's kind of our go-to how we start the show, because then I don't have to look at my book list right away, and I can put you on the spot.
There you go. Well, I have to figure out to get back to my book list since I'm in the middle of some book here
Uh-oh.
that isn't letting me go back to where I need to be. So this could be bad, since we can't talk about Erik Larson again.
Yeah, we have talked about him.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Do you want me to start instead?
Yes. Why don't
Okay.
you start while I play around with the stupid phone?
I am currently in the middle of Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the second book in the Empyrean series. So the first book that came out last year, 2 years ago, was called Fourth Wing, and the book series follows Violet Sorrengail, who is at I'm going to say it's kind of like a college, because these people, the characters are like in their 20s. She goes to this battle college to become a dragon rider. This is a fantasy book.
I think it is.
I like my my fantasy books.
This is not reality.
Like the book, I went to open it, and the first thing it said was, "This book hits the ground running and does not stop." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." Oh no, it hits the ground running, and you go right through to the end with a cliffhanger ending.
So is this
And then you
part
had
of
to
a-
wait another 5 months for book 2 to come out.
Is it a series?
Yes. So there are going to be 5 books in the series. The third book comes out in January, I believe, which will be called Onyx Storm. So the first book is her kind of adjusting to life at the college and meeting her dragons.
Friends?
And dragons.
Oh, her dragon,
And
right.
some of her friends. It's a pretty cutthroat thing. Like
Is it
if the dragons
Hunger
are
Games?
kind of, but the dragons are not very friendly sometimes. So like if they smell fear, they might just roast you on the spot and kill you, and that's just the end of that character.
We're not using
but it was
fireproof dragons.
No fireproof dragons. But there's like so to get to pass and to become part of the school, you have to walk on this very thin parapet to get up to the school, and that's like your first test, because people fall, and that's just, they die, and they don't go to school.
So this
It's
school is place for keeps.
Yes. So, so at the beginning of the book, you meet this character, like, oh, he's going to be so fun. And then he dies 3 sentences later, and you're like, or not. And so this is sort of following her through as
Is this
it goes.
book 1?
Book 1 is Fourth Wing, yep. And then the one I am currently reading right now is called Iron Flame, which is just sort of, they're back for their second year, and things are getting more difficult and sticky, and there's rebellion and magical creatures and all that stuff. And from what I haven't gotten to the end of it yet, but from what people have told me, I need to prepare myself for the ending. So we will see what happens at the end of this book, but it's a very interesting trip so far. And when she says you hit the ground running and we're off, you're off. Which
Wow.
has been very interesting.
I guess so.
It's sort of the flow when you think about Angels and Demons by
yes.
Dan Brown, where that one you're on, everything happens on the hour,
Yes.
the next bad thing's going to happen. And so it's sort of that feeling where this is not a book to read if you need to just relax, because no one in this book is relaxed.
Yeah.
Something bad is always going to happen around the corner, and it usually does. But have you figured out what you've read?
Yeah, finally. I mean, I almost had to reprogram this thing. But I'm sort of into a World War II bent too, and I'm reading The Sinking of the Bismarck by William Schreier.
Okay.
He was he wrote The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich,
Okay.
which is a well-known book. He was a newspaper correspondent. And if you're into World War II history at all, one of the big moments was the British sinking of the Bismarck. And for 1,000 years, Great Britain had been the king of the seas, and the arrival of the Bismarck would potentially have sunk the island country because the U-boats were really decimating their shipping from the United States. And with the ship like the Bismarck, a battleship on the loose like that, would probably just wipe out the whole Navy, British Navy. And so became the number one priority when the ship left the shipyard to take out the Bismarck. And then this is the story of how they did it. And they lost some of their great battleships in the process. But it's a great read because the good guys win. And
there always makes it, it's one of those things where you go back and you read book like this. And I remember hearing when my dad was overseas for Desert Storm, you guys would watch like World War II movies and go back and look at that. And I remember hearing Grandpa Charlie always said, of course, we watch something about a war that we know how it ends.
Yes.
Instead of watching what actually is going on.
Yeah, that's true. We like to win and we like wars that end well.
Yes. Well, yes. Because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Which can be hard with nonfiction to get through.
That's true. Sinking of the Bismarck is also a movie, a black and white movie that's just great. And it's often on, different channels.
AMC.
Yes.
TMC,
yes.
yeah.
Different channels like that. And so if you haven't seen it and are interested in World War II, seek it out because it's well done. And if you want to read a book about it, William Schreier's book is one I would recommend.
Good.
How about what else?
Let's see. I should just not put this down.
I know,
but
I'm afraid to put mine
just
down
talking.
because it'll start talking or something.
Recently, I was in a play this winter called The Crucible. And so to get ready for it, I had to read the play to know what I was auditioning for. And so I went back and I read it. First time I had read it since high school. It's one of those shows. If you haven't read it, The Crucible is set during the Salem witch trials, and it follows a group of people from kind of how things got started up and through the witch mania that did happen during that time. And it was written by Arthur Miller. And the play itself is actually a reflection on the McCarthy era and McCarthyism, because Arthur Miller was blacklisted by Hollywood because of his probably was, who knows at this point, everybody was a communist back then, it feels like, or had been to a communist meeting. So he was blacklisted, and so this is his way of an interpretation on McCarthyism, but actually it also gives you something to think about again with what is going on in the world today with just the hysteria and how in the play, it's basically a bunch of girls are found dancing in the woods and they don't want to get in trouble, and so they cry witchcraft on innocent women and men, and in the end, I believe 29, I think, were hung or died, and they were all innocent. And it's one of those things where, after the fact, they're pardoned, but you've already hung them, so it doesn't really do any good to pardon them except to get their name back. And so
families, I
suppose the family, but I really didn't like it in high school. I was sort of drafted into auditioning by my husband because he said I needed to get off my not doing theaterness and get back on stage. So I played Rebecca Nurse, who was a 74-year-old woman. I got to break out the old age makeup that I perfected during high school with my gray hair. And I'm happy to say that people didn't know it was me, which is, I think, that as an actress, when I get up on stage, that is a kind of a powerful thing, that if you can transform enough that people were like, well, I thought Elizabeth was in this. Well, she was. She was the really old woman with the cane walking across the stage. But so it was just one of those, I didn't like it in high school. I didn't want to, and I wasn't too sure about going into it if it was going to be a great experience, but and even the audience that came and saw it, or the people that have read it, have said it's a very timely show.
What's interesting about it too, I'd like to add, is first of all, I'm on the board of the Fungus Among Us Players of Dassel Cokato, and when it came up as a show to do, I have to say, I really was not enthusiastic about it because I just could not see people wanting to attend and pay money to see this show that was basically a huge downer in the middle of winter, no less.
Yes.
And but I have to credit Carolyn Hoge at the Dassel History Center because it was Carolyn's idea, and as part of the whole production, they kicked it off before the show opened with a program at the History Center with an English teacher who taught the Crucible and had done a lot of research about it. And it was well attended, which actually I thought was very interesting.
Yeah. And it was, as there was after one of the Sunday performances, the cast and crew all took part in what we call a talkback with the audience, where audience members can stay and ask questions of the actors about with it, and that was very well attended, and we got a lot of really interesting questions. And
I just thought the whole thing was interesting, and in fact, it sold out.
Yes, most of the performance. The only performance that really didn't sell out was like one of the very first ones, because everybody waits to see if it's any good before they buy their tickets, and then the last day because there was a snowstorm. But people still came.
Our one and our only snowstorm.
But it was, it's the thing that's interesting is with Minnesotans. First of all, we buy tickets last minute to go to anything because we don't know what the weather's going to do or if we're going to be able to leave. But at the same time, if it's something in our community and it's important, they're going to show up and they're going to support. And we're very lucky to have so many organizations in this area, whether it's book programs or programs offered through our libraries or our community education that are really beneficial.
Yeah, I was so pleased when I would check with Betsy and Tom about ticket sales. And then I'd see it on, Tom would be posting online saying, we have 5 tickets left, or we have a list, we'll call if there's some cancellations. And I'm glad I didn't bet anybody because I would have lost.
But it's one of those that it could also be too that, when all of us originally read The Crucible, we were 15, 16, 17, and now looking back at it in your 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever age you are, some of that stuff you need to go back and read again because it's important that we read it in school, but it doesn't make a lot of sense until you're older. Just like everybody in high school thinks Romeo and Juliet, fantastic, it's so great. And it's like, no, this show is about 2 kids who met, fell in love, had a 3-day relationship, and then they killed themselves.
Yeah.
It's not really that great.
And it's typical Shakespeare.
It is typical Shakespeare. There's much better Shakespeare out there.
Yes.
It was really interesting to go back and reread it. And I remember having a conversation with someone if going back and it made more sense for them to go back and reread The Crucible or to go back and reread The Scarlet Letter. And I was like, well, The Crucible is shorter, so maybe do that. But I mean, it's one of those things where I think in school people read one or the other about the Salem witch trials. But it was very timely, and it kind of helped you learn a lot. And I know a lot of people that were in the cast, it makes you want to go and read more about the main characters that it takes place, the real people that the stories are based on. And Bill O'Reilly actually came out with a book recently that I am on hold for at the library called, he has his killing series, Killing Lincoln, Killing Kennedy. Well, one of his new ones is Killing the Witches, which is about the Salem witch trials. And so I'm interested to read that one because I do like that series of books that he does, especially Killing Lincoln, because it is a fiction style of writing, but it's nonfiction facts. And there are things that, like, I know for myself, in school, they don't go into detail with Lincoln assassination. Mostly it's Lincoln was assassinated in the theater by Booth. We move on. But this, when Lincoln was assassinated, it was a whole plot to take out, like, the big players in the government.
Yes.
It was the
Secretary
of State,
Vice
President. They wanted to take everybody out.
If you want to read a really good book about that, read Doris Kearns' Team of Rivals.
Team of Rivals.
And if you don't want to read the whole book, then skip to the last chapter because that tells you all about what happens on the night that Lincoln is assassinated.
Yes.
And Booth had this group of ne'er-do-wells who met and were tasked with all these activities. And literally, if that were happened today, I mean, I don't know what would happen. I mean, it would be like the army would be out and it'd be like 9/11.
It would.
I mean, they would
But
shut down.
Yeah, it was really, I think it's a very interesting series. I tried to read Killing Kennedy and I did not finish it. But I think it's more, apparently I'm just not really into the Kennedys.
That's okay.
I think is my problem. But yeah, I think that's a great series to read. He has Killing Jesus is one, Killing the Mob, Killing Patton.
I don't
I think
remember.
is one of them.
There's
There's
quite
a
a few
whole
of them.
bunch of them now. But Killing Lincoln was the first one he wrote. And I think I read that book in one sitting.
Yeah, because they're
remember
easy
it.
to read.
Yeah.
And they're interesting. I want to throw in something about Shakespeare because if you are a Shakespeare fan, the Fungus Among Us players are doing Much Ado About Nothing as the summer Shakespeare production. And they will be doing 2 performances in Hutchinson
Yes.
this summer. And I'll be writing about it in the new Hutchinson Station newspaper. And if you saw the last issue, I explained all that.
Yes.
But the play is one that's fun, and they do it sometimes in outdoor settings and also indoors.
Yes.
And it's cool, and they do it every other year. And they've done
We've done Midsummer Night's Dream
Taming of the Shrew.
and Taming of the Shrew. And I think those are the only 2 so far.
Yeah, because COVID wasn't there.
Occurred, and there were some other things that. But theater's coming back. It's
Yeah,
great to see
and
everybody
so
getting out and about.
if you're a Shakespeare fan, and if you're not a Shakespeare fan, but would like to learn more about Shakespeare, this is a wonderful way to do it. Because I am no Shakespeare fan, and when we went and saw Midsummer Night's Dream, I was amazed because I finally understood
Yes. And if you're lucky, there's a few different performances at some of the local wineries, which can make it even better.
it. That's right. Yeah,
Especially
totally.
with the Crow River Winery or Jomas, they've got great food
Pizza.
options and wine options and beautiful locations.
Yes.
to
Do you bring
be
your
in.
lawn chair?
Yes.
Yeah, bring
Yep.
your lawn chair.
Most
and-
places
and
that would be it. So yeah.
If it's a really super hot summer, then choose the indoor venue.
Yes. Or bring shade.
Yeah, that's true.
Or hope there's wind.
Yeah, that's true too. Or bring a
Yes.
lot of water.
Yes. And there's usually water provided, I think,
Yeah.
at some of the performances. But yeah.
So do you want to know what else I read?
Yes, I do.
C.S. Harris. Have you read any of C.S. Harris?
The name sounds familiar, but there's several authors with Harris that come to mind.
Well, the latest book is called What Cannot Be Said.
Okay.
And they take place after the Napoleon Wars
Okay.
and the French Revolution and all this stuff in like about 1810
Okay.
France. And the story is about this guy, and I would draw a blank on his name considering how famous he is, but Sebastian is his
Okay.
first name. And in the first book, he's actually being hunted because they think he's a murderer.
Okay.
And he's rich, and his father's in the government high up, and so he's hiding out and all this. And anyway, he gets cleared and has an affinity for murder and solving murders and
For solving them, not doing them, correct?
correct,
Okay.
correct. And so he, and plus the fact he served in the army for like 6 or 7 years or something. And so the king's right-hand man, so to speak, Sebastian marries his daughter.
Okay.
And her name, and Dad doesn't like Sebastian. And so he's all, I mean, the two of them, one of these days they'll murder each other. And so, but the books are good, and they have different, they're interesting because she does a lot of research, and so you really have a sense of the time period. and what the people are like, and they talk about the guillotining the royals, and Napoleon being sent away, and all different kinds of things. And so they're good books. I highly recommend them. And but the latest one just came out, and of course, I'm sort of cheap. I'm a Kindle Unlimited person, so I tend to read those books because you pay $10 a month and you get as many books as you want to read.
You could have up to 10 at one time.
Yeah, I always have 10.
I'm sure. Is that supposed to surprise me? It doesn't surprise me, Kay.
But I actually paid $16 and some cents for the Kindle version of What Cannot Be Said.
Okay.
Because I just had to simply read it. I also bought the Eric Larson book.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and so, I mean, boy, I'm in deep now, $32.
I know. The book I'm really excited for to come out in September, Richard Osman, who is our Thursday Murder Club wonderful person, which that's also getting a TV series, by the way.
Is it?
It is. Helen Mirren is going to play our wonderful Elizabeth.
Wow.
And I believe Ben Kingsley is in it. I think he's playing Ibrahim.
Oh, what a...
And I think Pierce Brosnan is, what's his name? The other guy. Why can't I think of his name?
Oh, the guy who was in the Union?
Yes, the lobbyist.
Yes.
Drawing a blank on his name, but he's also in it. They haven't announced Joyce yet.
That is a great...
Yes, but it's going to be... So Thursday Murder Club, our retirees living in their retiree community who get together once a week, or we're getting together once a week to try to solve cold cases. And lo and behold, because this is what happens in the English countryside, real murders begin to occur and they have to solve them. And so he has said that there is going to be more Thursday Murder Club books, but Richard Osman is starting a new series, and the first one that will be coming out in September is called We Solve Murders. And I'm very excited for that one. And I actually had a lady I go to church with had asked me the name of it because she thought it came out this month and tried to buy it and thought she had to pre-order it, and she was very sad.
Oh. But, I have to say, though, the third book in the Thursday Murder Club.
Last Man to Die?
Yes, was a tough one.
Or yes. The fourth one is tough, yeah.
It was a tough book because I did not, it had a twist that I did not expect.
The last one is The Last Devil to Die, I think is what it's called, or something like that, and yeah.
And my sister Jill it's another book that we've all been reading, and I wondered what was going on because I'd hear from her and she'd say, "Oh, where are you?" That's always a tip-off that there's something coming around the corner.
Yeah, that's always tough. Where are you? What's happening in what you're reading? And you're like, I don't even want to tell you. I don't want to tell you where I am. I don't want to know what you've read. I don't want to do it.
I have to say this one was tough. Yeah. I mean, it really felt like I knew the person. Mm-hmm. And
again,
I was not prepared.
That's my big problem with book series is I get attached to everybody.
Yeah, that one, I have to say that I didn't expect it, and I was surprised by it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I figured what was going to happen. Well, part of it would eventually happen, but not how it happened.
Yes.
Not that we're being vague or anything, but we're being vague because we don't do spoilers here unless the books are like,
or at least we
25 years old or 20 years old. 20 is the cutoff. At that point, if you haven't read it yet, it's your own fault that you're caught by surprise.
Yeah, But I do have to say those books are great, and if you haven't read them in order. Mm-hmm. Those you need to read in order. And then if you aren't interested but are interested in reading his new series, September.
Yep. And that'll be a separate series. It's not attached to Thursday Murder Club at all. I also started, this isn't really a book, but it's a book puzzle that's been out there for many years. So there is a book puzzle called, I don't remember who wrote it, but the book puzzle itself is called Cain's Jawbone. So it comes in a book form, but none of the pages are in order. So the whole point is to put the book together into the right order. And I found it through a video on Facebook of people trying to do it because it came out, I believe, in like the 70s or 80s. And to this day, no one has solved it. There was even like 2 years ago, the publishing company did a contest for a year. And you were given a sheet and that you would list out the order of all the pages and try to get it together. And nobody has finished it or has solved it yet completely. And
Wow.
it's, so I got it.
So does the book come? Are
It
all the
comes
pages separate?
no, everything is in the book, and some people keep it all together. Other people get their little X-Acto knife, and people have like, I call them the murder boards, where it's like everything's on the wall with the little wires and stuff collecting them. People get really into trying to solve or into it,
I
trying to figure it out.
believe it.
I mean, it's interesting what people in the literary world attach onto and try to figure out, and
But that was
all of
that
that.
one. It seems doable. I mean, what is
Yes.
it? 200 pages?
I think so.
I
And
mean,
it's,
yeah, that's
they're all. It looks like it's bigger than it is because all the pages are one-sided, so that you
Oh.
can shuffle them around if you X-Acto knife them out or rip them out. But it's very interesting how the people that I've seen the videos of them trying to solve it, how everybody does it a little different and that stuff.
Is there a way to solve it?
There is an answer, yes, just nobody has. I think some people have gotten close, but I don't believe anybody has actually solved it.
I wonder
So,
if it's a situation where there's different combinations.
there might be. I have it, but I haven't had a whole lot of time to spend on it with parenting and working and life. Being life this year.
I would say that don't let
But-
Archie near it. That
Yes.
3-year-old will, yeah.
Pretty much. But
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. So once I maybe start figuring it out, maybe I'll try to share a bit of my Kane's Jawbone journey with you all. But on that note, we've reached the end of our time for this week. So if you have anything you want us to read or have read anything that we've talked about, please reach out through either our Facebook page or through our email, offtheshelfbooktalk@gmail.com, and we will hopefully be back next month.